welcome again to The Actor's Vow. This is Denise Faratapat, and I'm so excited that you're here another week. So, I am recording this episode from my kitchen. So if there are some weird sounds or you hear my boyfriend in the distance, it's because he needed the studio/office today because he is studying and he's doing online school and, quarantine life at its finest. So welcome to my kitchen today. I have a couple updates before we get into the episode with an incredible guest that we have today. But I wanted to let you know that I finally, after months and months, finished Grey's Anatomy. And you probably are thinking, why? I'm kind of embarrassed to even admit this because, if you've ever watched Grey's Anatomy, let's say it's not the best show, especially the last seasons. It was addicting. It was something I was watching with my boyfriend, and I'm happy I finished it. But, now it's like a void inside me. It's like, what the hell do I watch? So if you have any recommendations, please let them be better than Grey's Anatomy. I'm always looking for new shows that are good. I mean, I love all kind of shows like comedy or like more drama. One of my favorite shows is Breaking Bad. I also love Sherlock. So you know more or less what I like. So please send me your recommendations on what to watch. Also, I wanted to talk about the news that came, I think it was last week or the past one, about SAG-AFTRA releasing an influencer agreement. And the first time I saw it, I just saw the headline and I was like, oh no, fuck no, like here we go. I don't think I'm the only one when I'm saying this to think that it's getting very annoying to see, casting calls and audition notices that say, we're looking for influencers. We're looking for someone who has at least this amount of followers. So it's becoming less about acting and more about who has more followers here. Which it doesn't make sense because, I'm sorry to say this, sorry not sorry, influencers are not actors. And you cannot replace that. And we can tell when you just cast an influencer. I've seen so many shows lately that just cast influencers because they will bring the audience and they have sure that the money will be given back for the producers because they know the amount of people who watch them. And the good thing about influencers for them is that people who follow them love them and they will follow them and watch anything they're in. So it's very interesting. I was talking to my cinematographer friend. I've talked about him before in the show. He was telling me that in the last shows he's worked, like in the past year and a half, there had to be at least one influencer. Like that was a thing. The casting people were like, yeah, we need at least one influencer in the show. And I think that's fucking ridiculous. So the agreement SAG-AFTRA released, I was reading like all about it. And it's a separate agreement than an acting agreement. But of course, it still puts you in the union. And I kind of understand that influencers and all this new era of entertainers online that cannot be called actors but are in some way entertainers and content creators, they need some kind of protection and some kind of union, right? That I understand that they want that. I just think it's a little problematic if you put them under the same category as actors, which they're not. Again, it's a different agreement. But still, they are SAG-AFTRA. So I don't know what you think, guys. I don't know if you think they should create something different for entertainment, for content creators and influencers, because I don't think they should be put as the same category as actors. I think it creates more confusion and it also undermines the role of an actor. Again, sorry, not sorry. We have spent years training for these. We have spent so much money on coaches, classes, and building our craft. We have fought so much to get our SAG-AFTRA union card. And, just because they are creating cool content about makeup and other kind of brands, I don't think we deserve to be in the same category. But please let me know your opinion. I would love to hear from you. So I think it's time we introduce the guest this week. This week's guest is Sarah Ann Fernandez. And I am so excited that she's here. She's such a young actress. And at her young age, she has been the understudy for Elphaba in Wicked in the national tour. The most fascinating part of her story is that she studied her BFA in drama in NYU Tisch. And that's awesome, it's a great school. And as soon as she graduated, her first professional job was the understudy for Elphaba in Wicked. Now that is incredible, and we're gonna talk about it in the interview. And her herself, she says, that doesn't happen very often, and it's so true. That doesn't happen very often. A few weeks ago, we had Jared Dixon from Hamilton, and he was telling us how it took him 8 years to have a substantial role, and now he's in Hamilton, so happy. But it takes many years to get this kind of responsibility and this kind of lead role. So Sarah Ann Fernandez is obviously very talented, very trained. She has an incredible work ethic, and you can tell just with this interview. She's going to be talking about how she started out, what she's doing now in quarantine, and of course Wicked. She's going to tell us all about the tour and the insights of the show, her favorite parts, and the most exciting part about this, and why I wanted her to be a guest in The Actor's Vow, is because Wicked was her dream role, Elphaba in Wicked. And I thought that was so inspiring, that right after college, the first thing she gets is her dream role. Dreams do come true. And I think she is the embodiment of that dreams do come true. So I think she doesn't need further introduction. You will hear all about Sarah Ann Fernandez in the next 40 minutes. So let's welcome Sarah to The Actor's Vow. Welcome, Sarah, to The Actor's Vow. It's so exciting to have you here today.
I am so excited to be here today. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So my first question for you is, what made you want to be an actor?
Well, that's a great question. There was a lot of things. I think the first thing that really made me want to be a performer was when I was younger. I really loved the movie The Little Mermaid. And I wanted to be just like Ariel. I wanted to be a singer just like her. And that for a while, that was it for me. I wanted to be a singer. And then when I was little, I took dance lessons and I was like, I want to be a dancer. And then finally, when I was 10 years old, I saw Wicked on Broadway for the first time. And I was like, this is so cool because everybody here gets to sing and dance at the same time.
Get to do it all.
And, you get to do everything that I loved to do. So I was like, yeah, I think being a performer is it for me. I don't just want to be a singer. I don't just want to be a dancer. I kind of want to do everything. And then, when I found out that theater is everything, that was it for me.
Okay, then did you go to drama high school or college for it?
So I went to college for theater. I went to a public high school that was by my house. I mean, they had a great music program, so I was able to get a great music education, but not so much of a drama education, I guess, which is why I ended up going to NYU Tisch for theater. And I went there for 4 years and got a degree in drama and learned all about acting and more about singing and dancing and the business and training in that sense. And then once I graduated, I felt ready to sort of really pursue it professionally.
So have you been singing since you were little?
Yes. I mean, singing professionally, obviously, since I've been trained since college, but I've been singing since I was 2 years old. My parents used to listen to me all around the house singing Part of Your World from The Little Mermaid all the time, everywhere, every second of the day.
But you didn't get coaching for it until you went to college?
I started doing singing lessons around when I was in high school. With a local voice teacher. I'm from Long Island, New York, so with a local voice teacher from there. And then I started to get obviously training in college, and I still have a voice teacher to this day. But pre voice coaching, it was just me and the music doing whatever I wanted.
That's so cool. I studied in Long Island. I didn't know you were from Long Island.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Where?
I studied at Adelphi University.
Oh, that's so funny. That is very close to where I am. Yeah, that's very close to where I am.
Yeah, that's
Adelphi is great.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the program. How was college for you? Is that something you would recommend to someone who wants to pursue musical theater?
I definitely think so. I mean, I'm a big like eternal student type of person. I really do love to learn. I've really always loved school.
Okay.
And for me, it made a lot of sense to go to school for theater and to train specifically in all the areas that I felt like I needed help with in the field, and all the areas that I already had a little bit of knowledge in to sort of up my game there. I feel like I learned a whole career's worth of learning in 4 years, truly. And I mean, that's not to say that I don't continue to try to learn as much as possible, and I don't continue to try to further my education.
Mm.
But I definitely believe that a drama degree is important.
Mm.
I think the most important thing about it, of course, was the training, the singing training, the acting training, the dance training. But I think what was most important for me, at least, was also getting to just pursue education in general. And I think, at least at NYU, they had a very comprehensive general education program where, you know, we had to take theater studies every year, and we had to
Yes.
learn about the history of what we were doing, and we had to learn about social sciences and other sciences and maths and things that interested us outside. And I think the key to being a well-rounded actor is by living a well-rounded life and sort of having experience in a lot of different things and pulling on that when you're in performance. And so I think getting an education outside of training is one of the most important things, to me at least, that helped me in my artistry, that has helped me since.
Absolutely. And you can surely get that training outside of college, but
Right.
college does give you that experience, you know, it's 4 years where all you have to worry about is that. And for
Exactly.
sure it's very helpful, because once you get into the real world, you don't get just to be that focused, right, in what you love.
Exactly. And, you know, I also, something that I had done for fun, you know, like I was always very interested in the history of theater, but getting to really study that in college in depth was something that shocked me in how much I loved it.
Mhm.
And I really ended up taking a lot of classes about theater history and theater theory and stuff like that. And I was very, very intrigued and interested in that. And I think that's really helped my career a lot. I think that's
Yeah.
really helped my appreciation of what I do a lot more, knowing how people created it and brought us, you know, the industry that we do have today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So you said that Wicked was a dream role then. It was the first
Yes.
thing you saw on Broadway. So that's very exciting. Could you tell us how was the audition process and how you got to be in Wicked?
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, my first audition for Wicked ended up being the audition that booked me the job, which
Mhm.
I know, especially for Wicked, is not normal.
Yeah.
I know people audition for a while um, for that show and for many shows, obviously. And so I did not expect anything to stick when I had my first audition. And honestly, I think it was really a case of right place at the right time. You know, I was seen for sort of a general audition for my first audition, like a general Elphaba replacement at some point.
Mhm.
And then right after my first audition, the girl who I ended up replacing had put in her notice, and there was a spot for me. And then the process just moved forward very quickly. So really, truly right place at the right time. It
Mhm.
doesn't always happen like that. And I know how lucky I am that it
Yeah.
happens like that for me. Um, so yeah, so I had about 3 auditions. I had my first audition, which was material that they gave me from the show that Elphaba performs in the show, 3 songs and 2 scenes.
So it wasn't a
And
general
then,
female audition, it was just for Elphaba.
yes,
Got it.
yeah, which again was also a very lucky thing. I mean, when I first got that email, like I saw Wicked and I was like, okay. And then I scrolled down and I saw Elphaba and I was like, wow, okay. You know, this is sort of everything I've ever wanted. And it was nice that I didn't have to memorize any material for the audition because I already knew it all, you know.
Right?
Um, but then there was also nerves there, of course, because it's like, you know, you spent your whole life working on this one thing, and now this is your shot. So I had that first audition, and
what did they have you do again in the audition?
They had me sing Defying Gravity, The Wizard and I, I'm Not That Girl, and then there were 2 scenes, and I did a little bit of the first one.
Wow, that's a lot of songs.
Yes, and it's the top 3 hardest songs in my opinion, at least. I think people don't realize how difficult I'm Not That Girl actually is, because it is a ballad and it's not big, you know, theatrical belting like the rest of her music, but it's actually, because it sits so low in every Elphaba's register, when we're singing at the top of our voices for the rest of the show, getting down there for that moment and having to jump right back up like the next scene after, it's actually quite difficult, and it's sort of like pacing your voice and figuring out how you're gonna do both songs justice, which is it's not something you'd expect to be difficult, but actually is. So having that in the audition packet is actually very, very smart of them, to sort of see if you can jump back and forth like that.
If you can do that, you can do the others, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And you know, it's all about, I think Elphaba deals a lot in extremes. She's either singing extremely high and extremely full out, or she's actually in this extreme, quiet, vulnerable, low place. There's sort of no middle ground with her, even in character, you know, even in the way that she reacts to everything. And so having an audition packet that was full of extremes is genius of them. And it's daunting for sure in the audition room, but it sort of feels like if I can nail the audition, then it's just replicating that on stage, which was difficult, but it was a very fun challenge to try to overcome. So that first audition happened, and then I got a callback a couple weeks later, and then after that callback I had a dance callback the day after, and that day, a couple hours after that callback, I found out that I got the job, and a couple of weeks later I was on a plane to Los Angeles, which is where I started on the tour. And I learned the show in LA. I did about 3 performances in LA before we moved on to Salt Lake City, and then I was on tour.
How was the learning process? How long did you have before you joined
the cast? So I had about 3 weeks to learn the whole show as my ensemble track and as Elphaba.
Because you were cast as an understudy.
Yes. Yeah. So I was on stage every night in the ensemble, and then I would go on as Elphaba whenever I was needed to perform. And so I had to learn 2 different tracks at the same time in less than 3 weeks, which was pretty crazy. But it, it was just something that I think took determination. You know, I did not see any of Los Angeles, which is kind of sad, but I was like, look, I will come back another day. You know, like I will come back some other time and I'll do the sightseeing. But for right now, I need to be in the basement of the Pantages Theater going over it again and again and again and again, because in 3 weeks, I'm going to be on stage with everybody who knows the show like the back of their hand, for an audience of thousands of people who are paying to see someone who knows the show. So I was like, you know, I can't slack on this. This has to have all of my attention, more than all of my attention. And, you know, thankfully, I was taught the show by a swing, who, this wonderful, amazing woman named Deanna, who was so kind and patient with me and taught me the show. And still to this day, like when I used to, you know, be in the show pre-COVID, you know, like little things that she would teach me, or little like tricks and stuff like that would be in my head. I would always have Deanna in my head on stage, and she was so wonderful that I loved that. So she taught me my ensemble track, and then our stage manager, David O'Brien, taught me the Elphaba track, and then I would rehearse with Glinda understudies and Fiero understudies and Madame Morrible and Wizard understudies and stuff, they would come in and be so gracious and wonderful, and they would rehearse with me,
Okay.
so that I could feel like I knew what was going on, because most of the time
Right.
rehearsing both of my tracks was just me in a room by myself, and they'd be like,
Wow.
okay, so then you're standing here with blah blah blah, and then you're standing there with, you know, so and so, and then you move here, but you have to make sure you don't hit this person, but there's nobody there. So, you know, you
Right.
have to be like, okay, remember not to hit them, but also I have no idea who that is, and nobody's here right now, you know. So
Yeah.
it's certainly certainly tricky to come into an already established show. You know, like it wasn't like I was rehearsing with the whole
Right.
company. I was rehearsing by myself.
Did
Um,
you get to rehearse with the whole company at some point?
I had one rehearsal, which is called a put-in rehearsal, which
Uh-huh.
was the day of my debut. And so everybody
Oh
came
my
in
goodness.
that morning and ran through the show with me, and I got to do it in all of my costumes on stage.
Mm.
So I got to practice the costume changes, and I got to practice doing the show with everybody on stage. So that was the morning of my debut, and then that evening I was put into the show. And same thing a couple months later, because timing was crazy with all of the traveling. A couple months later, I had my Elphaba put in, where everybody
Mm.
came in and I did the show as Elphaba, just to make sure that I knew what was going on with people around me.
Uh-huh.
Um, yeah, so the only time I ever rehearsed with people was both of my put in rehearsals. And then my Elphaba debut was 5 or 6 months after my Elphaba put in rehearsal.
Okay.
So it was like,
But
we
you
did it
had time
once.
to see it then too.
Of course, but
Yeah.
it's different to see it and to do it, definitely.
Right.
So, you know,
Right.
sort of like having not really touched it for a couple of months and then just getting the call of, you're on his Elphaba tonight. It's definitely scary, but you
How was
know,
that? Was it like, did they tell you that same day?
yes. So my Elphaba debut, I actually found out about 40 minutes 50 minutes before the show that
Oh
I
my
was
goodness.
going on, which was crazy. It was a 2-show day. We were in Denver. It was a Sunday. It was the end of our week. I had just done the matinee. And, you know, I was in my hotel room, just not thinking anything of anything. At the time, our Elphaba was Marianne Torres, our principal Elphaba, and she's
Uh-huh.
so phenomenal. She's the kind of person that, like, I had no idea she wasn't even feeling well, because she always sounds absolutely perfect. So there was like no way for, which, I mean, she's a superhuman. That's the only explanation for how she does that. But so I had sort of no inkling that it was going to happen, because
Right.
it's like, Marianne sounds amazing, you know, whatever. So I was just in my hotel room, and I got a text message, and right after the show, actually, I got a text message, and they were like, Marianne doesn't feel very well. We'll let you know what's going on.
Mm.
I was like, okay. I was like, but I've gotten this text message a lot of times before. So I
Okay.
was like, whatever, it's fine. It's not going to happen. And then about like 45 minutes before the show, as I'm getting ready to go back to work anyway, they were like, you're on his Elphaba tonight. Marianne called out. She doesn't feel well. And I was just like, okay, all right, you know, like sort of like sitting in my sweatpants on the couch in the hotel room, kind of hanging out, watching. This is when Dead to Me came out on Netflix, and I was watching Dead to Me and just invested in my Netflix show. And then, you know, it was a very quick turnaround of, what do I need? Everybody from work was calling me. They were like, what do you need? Do you have tea? Do you have throat drops? Do you have this? Do you have everything you need? And I'm like, yeah, I guess so. You know, we're just going to do it.
Were you
And it was great.
nervous?
I was very nervous, but honestly, I think having spent my whole life wanting to play Elphaba, and then having spent about almost 6 months on tour of like, when is the night going to be?
Right.
I was so excited that the nerves and the excitement just kind of all became one thing. And it was like, I know what I'm doing. At least I think I do. And I'm not going to let the nerves get in the way of what I have waited for like 14 years of my life, you know.
Right.
I'm going to just do it.
That is
And
so exciting.
yeah, I just did it. I mean, it wasn't perfect, you know, nothing's perfect. I definitely made a few little mistakes here and there, and I'm I'm my worst critic, and I came off stage at certain moments and I was like, oh, I could have done that better. But also it's like, Sarah, this is the first time you've ever done it for an audience, and
Yeah, and you
you're
hadn't
22
rehearsed in
years
6
old.
months.
Yeah. And you're 22 years old and you just graduated college and you've never led a professional show. Like, be kind to yourself. This is
So that was the first time you did that, like in any
yeah.
show.
Yeah,
Wow.
I had, had lead roles in college, which was great, but they were small shows and they were college shows,
Yeah, no, it's not the same, of course.
like I had never led a company before, especially not a company like Wicked. I had never been the last bow and the character that's on stage every second and everybody's looking towards me to further the story. And yeah, it was a lot of pressure. It was, again, everything I've ever wanted in my career, of course,
Right.
but a lot of pressure. But I'm glad that I was able to sort of put that pressure on the back burner and just be like, I'm so excited to be here that's
Yeah.
gonna overshadow everything.
Yeah. So what are for you the difficulties of being an understudy? I mean, you said, you waited 6 months and then you have to be ready every day.
Yeah. I mean, you have to be ready every day. And I think like my debut sort of coming out of thin air really reminded me of that, of like, like there were some times that I was like, I'm never going to go on, so it doesn't matter. And then you're kind of like, no, that's not true.
Right.
I think that's difficult, of sort of having to always be prepared. And I think it's difficult in the sense that it's just it's not truly muscle memory. Like, you can rehearse it so much on your own, but you don't get as much opportunity as if you were doing it every night to sort of know exactly what's going on and like be able to sort of have it in your body. There's sort of always an element of thinking and making sure, I'm in the right spot and whatever. And honestly, for me, I rehearsed so much on my own. Like, I would do my own little hotel room performances of Wicked to make sure I knew, like, at this moment I'm standing right here, which means I'm in the spotlight and stuff like that. All the notes I'd taken.
So did you go through the whole show on your own every day?
All the time. Not every day, but all the time.
Okay.
All the time. And honestly, again, it was my dream come true. So it was fun.
That's fine. Yeah.
But little things like quick changes and stuff, or things that you don't practice often, because when you're in rehearsal, you're not in costume and stuff like that. So those were the little difficulties of, like, I always was anxious about those things that I couldn't rehearse until they were muscle memory.
Yeah.
Doing a quick change or being in the right spot for them to come and fix my hat or fix my wig or whatever. Like, I never wanted to be the person that messed everybody else up or held anybody else back. So that was always my biggest difficulty. Like the things that I couldn't rehearse were the things that always sort of had me on the edge of my seat, I guess, every time I was performing. But being an understudy, I think, was the best first job I could have ever had, because it showed me both sides, and it showed me just sort of how much work goes into both sides, and it let me sort of have the best of both worlds and learn on the job and understand what I could do and what I had trouble doing, and just sort of like helped me grow in a professional setting. Like, I was able to learn what it was like to really be a professional actor in both aspects, in the aspect of being in the ensemble and being a part of a company, and in the aspect of leading a company and how does that look and the responsibilities of that. It was truly the best of both worlds. It was the best first job I could have ever asked for.
Yeah, that's true. And so as an understudy, you already have an Elphaba that's been there and you have to, take over from her whenever needed. Is there a pressure to do it exactly like she does it? Do they ask you to study it from her?
That is a great question. So, that's definitely something that I struggled with, because they will never ask you to be just like somebody else.
Right.
Everybody has their own interpretation. One thing that they will, of course, ask, and one thing that that a lot of times they made sure that I was on top of is you have to know what everybody else around you is going to do.
Yeah.
So that you can respond to things that have sort of set in place, I guess, or so that you're not totally surprised. So like, for example, a couple of times, like after a lot of time had passed or after we had gotten a new Glinda or something like that, they would pull me out of the show for a night and make me watch the show and watch Glinda to see what funny little things she would do.
Right.
So that should I go on as Elphaba, I would be prepared and not like caught off guard by something she would do in Popular that somebody else didn't do, or, you know, like something like that. So it was, again, you're being plugged into an already working machine when you're an understudy. So it's
and also for the other actors, right? So
exactly.
You can give them that. Exactly.
So then you're not throwing anybody else off their game either. Cause it's not like, you know, you get put in and everybody's like, all right, let's change it up. You know, I know the first Fiero I worked with, he would always hand a broom over to you in one scene. The other Fiero that I worked with would throw it. And so, you know, you had to be prepared of like, am I catching something or am I grabbing something, you know, and like, and it's muscle memory for them. So as an understudy, I always found a common courtesy of like, well, what do you do? I'll do what you do, you know? But as for being like other Elphabas, that was something that in the beginning, I think I tried to do to a fault. I think I started to really doubt myself and I was like, well, they're amazing and I hear them every night and I want to be just like them and I don't want to be like me. I want to be like them. And I realized very quickly that that's not, you know, I can appreciate them and how incredible they are. And that really, I mean, I hope is the sincerest form of flattery of, you know, I am so amazed by these women that I would love to be just like them. But I had to be who my Elphaba was, and I had to be who Sarah was, and I had to sound like Sarah. And at first that was frustrating, especially because the Elphabas that I've worked with are women that have done the show on and off for like 8-9 years. These are women that have grown into this role beautifully and are known for doing this role, whereas it was my first shot at it ever. And I still hadn't grown into it yet. I was still exploring it, figuring out what it meant for me. And you know, I'm glad that I came to a point before I left the show that I was like, this is who my Elphaba is, and I'm happy with that. And that's not to say that I'm like, I'm going to change the whole script on everybody when I go on, but sort of just like, this is how I sound when I sing Defying Gravity. And that riff that she does, that sounds amazing on her, doesn't sound amazing on me. But something else sounds really good on me, and that's okay. And, you know, stuff like that. I think with a role as iconic as Elphaba and a role that has run as long as Elphaba has, so almost 17 years now, people sort of get expectations and people watch things on the internet and people want to hear certain things and compare women on the internet who have done it, which you know is hard if you let that get into your head, all of that comparison. And people mean well, you know, like they're just doing it for fun, but it can at times, I guess, pit women against each other, which I don't love about those comparison things on YouTube, which is why I kind of don't like when people do that for any show, whatever, because I'm like, all of them are good, you know. It's like you can't be like, who sang it best? I'm like, all of them sang it amazing.
So let's talk a little bit more about the show. What is the makeup like and the costume? You know, I'm pretty sure it takes a long to put that makeup on and remove it. So tell us about that.
So removing it definitely takes a long time, but we have a makeup artist on tour with us. Her name is Miss Joyce. She is phenomenal, and she can get an Elphaba green. I mean, it takes about 25 to 30 minutes. She's very, very quick. The fastest she has ever gotten a girl green is 7 minutes.
Wow. Okay.
She's amazing. She's phenomenal. And that's been in circumstances where an Elphaba has called out mid-show and somebody else has had to go on. So putting on the makeup is a very interesting, special thing. I mean, at first when they just paint you green at first, you get worried that like you're going to look like a turtle or like a frog or something. And you kind of do. And then And then they like sort of paint your features on, like they contour you, and they
Shadow,
put
yeah.
like mascara, and they put like a lip on you, and then suddenly you're like, I have never looked this beautiful in my life, and I will never look this beautiful ever again. Like,
Really?
you have just like transformed me. Yeah, and there's like lashes and all that good stuff. And yeah, so Act 1 Elphaba is a bit more of an understated makeup look. I mean, there's still, lashes and contour and lipstick and shadow and all that stuff. But it's a little more subdued to sort of look like she's got more of a natural face.
Right.
But then during intermission, the makeup gets revamped, and Elphaba gets a dark black smoky eye, a dark black lip, deeper contour, sort of just more of like a glam, witchy, glittery, vampy look. Which is so cool.
That's so cool.
To get to put that on, and then to put the Act 2 Elphaba like ribbon dress on, which is like what they call it. It's sort of made out of all these different pieces of ribbon. It is hand stitched, and it's this like gorgeous black witch dress. I truly have never felt more badass than when I got to wear that dress. And then they put the hat on you, and that hat is, I mean, obviously iconic in the way that they've designed it, so that it sort of comes up as opposed to just being a regular witch hat. And that's for lighting purposes, obviously. But it also, it's just, you feel so cool when you have the hat on your head and the dress on your body and all the makeup on your face. It's just gorgeous. And I mean, also, all of the costumes that I got to wear in my ensemble track were beautiful, beautiful costumes. I mean, my Emerald City dress, everyone has an Emerald City green outfit for one short day, and thank goodness. And I had this beautiful mermaid dress that was hand stitched and beaded, and just, oh my gosh, it was so beautiful, so gorgeous. All the costumes are so beautiful.
They are, yeah.
And the costume department, it's like a machine. These people are amazing. They can fix any problem in seconds, and they work on our costumes day in and day out. If there's ever a problem, by the next morning it's fixed. I mean, these are amazing people that take so much pride in their jobs. Yeah, I mean, I think that's also what makes the magic of Wicked even more magical, is like,
yes,
you look at all these crazy, kooky kind of outfits that just make sense, that totally place you in a world that's not the world which you can do that with a set, you can do that with music, but doing it with the costume, specifically in Wicked, really does, and the makeup really does.
It's magical. Yeah,
it is. It is totally magical. It brings you into Oz. Getting the green makeup off is not very simple.
Is the makeup on the arms, or the arms is just like a sleeve?
So in Act 1, you wear a green bodysuit, which covers your arms, but hands. you do get painted. Your hands get painted up to about your elbow length, and then your whole neck and torso and back up till, like, I guess, chest level on your back gets painted.
So it's a makeup that doesn't rub off with like costumes or anything?
It definitely transfers a little bit, but they do set it very, very heavily with special powders and special sprays and stuff, so that it does not come off. Right. I mean, the makeup on the hands is probably the makeup that transfers the most, just because of sweat and because you're always using your hands. Like, it's not like you're not touching anything. So all of Elphaba's props are all a little bit green. Okay. And you are taught the show as like, don't touch Glinda directly, right? In certain moments, because she will become green, or she's wearing a white outfit, you can't touch her outfit.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. Otherwise, everything ends up green. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So you do have to be very careful about who you touch and where. The good news is nobody really likes Elphaba in the first act, so you're not really touching anybody.
True.
Yeah, and of course there are mishaps. It happens. Makeup will transfer and stuff, and occupational hazard. But there are amazing people backstage that are ready, waiting for that to happen with makeup remover wipes and with more green to paint on in Elphaba's hands. And then it's truly, it's like, the whole team for Elphaba is like it's like a truck pit stop, you know, like when you see like cars in like in a, why can't I remember the word, in like a race setting, in like a race car driver setting. I don't know why that took me so long. Yeah. I don't know why it took me so long to think of that, but yeah, I mean, truly, it's like there's a whole team ready for your pit stop. You have like 7 seconds, and somebody's fixing your hair, and somebody's making you a little more green, and somebody's giving you a water bottle, and somebody's fixing your costume, and somebody's making sure that you have your prop, and then they just push you out and you go. Like, I mean, truly, it's like everyone transforms you. You have 7 seconds, and then you go right back out. Yeah, which is really cool. Elphaba does not survive without the village of people backstage. So they are definitely amazing. And they make sure the green stays on and doesn't go anywhere where it's not supposed to go. But taking it off after the show was always something I had a little bit of trouble with, because again, I didn't do it very often. So I was always like experimenting with different makeup removers and soaps and trying to see how it would come out best.
And then your shower and bath is all green.
Yeah, my calling card was leaving like green pillows at hotels.
I can imagine. Yeah.
And I always felt so bad, but I was like, I can't, like, it's in my hairline. I've pushed my hair 4 times and it's not coming out. It's been a week. I don't know what to tell you, you know, like it's just going to be on the pillow, and that is what it is. So, yeah.
What about like your skin? Like, I love skincare and all that, and I can only imagine putting that every night.
I mean, I did not do it every night, but I definitely, and I can't even imagine having done it every night, because I do actually have very sensitive skin. So the nights that I did go on as Elphaba, for like a week after, I would break out like crazy.
Right? Yeah.
Because it is such heavy makeup, you know. I mean, it is a water-based sort of like paint, like a face paint, the actual green makeup. So that's just
oily.
Well, right. So that's just the base, which is actually quite light. But then once you sort of cake Act 1 setting and Act 1 makeup, and then they sort of paint it all green again, and then they give you more makeup, you know, more contour, more eye makeup, more lip makeup, you know, all of that cakes on. Yeah. So it starts off light, but it ends up sort of being quite heavy. Right. And as someone who can break out just by like thinking of putting makeup on her face, it certainly was not the best for my skin. But I know Elphabas who have played it long term, who would go to get facials like just to watch the reactions of the woman giving them a facial, because that stuff gets stuck in there. It's pretty disgusting.
But I bet it's a very important like part of playing Elphaba, taking care of your skin.
Occupational hazard, you know. Everybody has weird things that they do for their job, and Elphabas are always a little bit green, which is very funny.
So as a performer, what is your favorite part of the show? Not when you watched it, but like when you actually got to do it.
I actually got to do it. Well, that's a good question. When I was in the ensemble, my favorite part of the show was Dancing Through Life. Okay. It's actually, I mean, on the cast album, it's about like a 6-minute song, but it's actually a whole big number with a lot of scenes in it. So it's about a 15-20 minute ordeal in the show, filled with costume changes and all of that stuff. But it's just a really, really fun number. Like the energy is really high, and everybody's dancing and singing and having a good time. And then we all go from our school outfits to these awesome black and white, funky, like Art Deco looking party outfits. And that's just so fun. That was always my favorite number to perform every night. That was also like an audience favorite. You know, everyone loves Dancing Through Life. Yeah. And then my favorite as Elphaba was always No Good Deed. That's my favorite song in Wicked. Okay. I just think, I mean, that's the moment where she sort of finally acknowledges her power. And granted, it's in a more sardonic way. You know, she's sort of like, I've lost everything. So at this point, if you want me to be wicked, then I'll be wicked. Yeah. Whatever. I don't care. But at the same time, it's sort of the first time that she's acknowledged, like, I can do whatever I want.
Yeah.
You know,
It's a
like,
very
and
powerful moment. Yeah.
yeah. And she's, you know, like, I mean, she spent so much of the show doubting herself and doubting her abilities. And this is the first time where, you know, she's like, if this is what you want from me, like I can bring it, and I can
Yeah.
give you more hell than you thought I could. And it's like kind of a really cool, it's also the first time, the only time in the show where they don't put Elphaba's hair up, like they don't style the wig as anything other than just like down and wavy. And that wig is long. I mean, it's like long wavy black locks.
Yeah.
And she's got that, she's got her vampy makeup. There's like smoke everywhere. It's one of the only times that she's really like truly alone on stage. Nobody's crossing, nobody's anything. And she's just like singing, like truly singing. That is one of the most, I think, vocally impressive songs in the show. So getting to do that, having, you know, fans blowing in my face and smoke, and having like a little bit of a cape, it's the coolest thing ever.
So badass. Yeah.
So badass. Like, you know, like I'm like, when I was younger, my mom was like, you don't want to be the good witch? And I was like, sure, she's nice. I was like, but there's something so cool about being bad in that moment, you know, which like, as like the biggest goody two shoes on the planet, getting to be bad for like 5 minutes
fun
to sing that song is amazing. It's so great.
Most actors love to play villains. Like,
oh,
it's
you know
fun.
why? Because it's so much fun. It really is. I mean, and this is a whole other conversation, right? I don't think Elphaba's really a villain.
She's not.
But,
yeah.
but getting to play the villain, even like just for a second, especially when, you know, you don't play a villain really ever in your real life, is a very cool thing. It's an extreme, I guess. You know, getting to play a villain is a very cool, fun thing.
Yeah. So you said it yourself, like that song is very vocally impressive.
Yeah.
And like the whole show really is. There are not that many Broadway shows that I think are so vocally impressive as like playing Elphaba. So what is your vocal warm-up, your vocal training for it?
Yeah, so I mean, just like you said, there are not very many shows, there are not very many roles that are as vocally intensive as Elphaba is. I mean, of course, the music in every Broadway show is phenomenal, and everyone is working really hard no matter what show they're doing.
Yeah.
But there's something about Elphaba and Wicked, even in the ensemble, that is truly like a marathon. It is an athletic sort of feat that if you don't properly train for it, if you don't properly prepare for it, you can end up really hurting yourself. And that was something before even going in, I knew. So I was like, I need to make sure that I don't do that to myself, especially when you add on touring and being in a different climate and in a different city and being on an airplane all the time. Which is funny because a lot of us, when we would fly between cities, a lot of us would actually wear masks so that we wouldn't get sick on an airplane. And now it's funny, like I look back at those photos and everyone thought I was crazy for wearing a mask.
That's funny, before the pandemic.
Yeah, before the pandemic, and now everybody wears a mask everywhere. But it's wild. But I have a wonderful voice teacher who, before I even went on tour, sort of put together a recording for me of a very long and intensive vocal warm-up to be prepared for any performance, right? And I would do that. I would just go to that recording and I would do that whole thing before a show.
By yourself in the hotel room before you go to the theater?
Sometimes in the hotel room, sometimes we'd go to the theater early. Sometimes some cities we would get rental cars. If the hotel was far away, I'd do it in the car. You know, I mean, truly, it's wherever you have time to do it, you're going to do it. You just have to do it. You know, like you can't just kind of, I'm sorry?
How long is it, the warm-up?
The full thing is about an hour. When I would go on for Elphaba, I would do the full thing. When I would do my ensemble track, I would do like maybe half of it. Like I would do the things I really needed. But Wicked is not a show that you can kind of like clear your throat and go do.
No.
Even in the ensemble, like you start with the good news is like, come on, you gotta really give that to the audience. So yeah, definitely took a lot of vocal warm-ups. I'm the type of person that needs to sort of really center myself and be ready for a show. So I would always be one of the first people there, even in my ensemble track. I would be there. I would do my makeup at work instead of at home. You know, I would warm up. I would get into my tights early, even though I hated it, you know, just like stuff like that. Like I needed to be ready early so that by the time it got to the 5-minute call and I was putting on my costume, it wasn't like I just woke up, you know,
For
like
sure.
I was ready to do a show. I felt physically warm. I felt vocally warm. I felt mentally warm.
Yeah.
You know, I am definitely not a person, props to them, but I am not a person that can roll out of bed and do a show. I need to
I'm
wake
the
up.
same. Yeah. No, I've heard some actors that go like 20, 30 minutes before showtime. Like I could not.
No, and I know so many people that did and that can, and I just can't at all. That is not me, and I wish I could. That would make my life so much easier, but I can't.
Yeah, for sure. So to you personally, because you know this is different to everybody, but why do you think Wicked has been like such a success? What is it about that like it's so important to people?
This is such a good question. I talk about this to people that don't even want to hear it. So, I mean, I think Wicked's brilliant. I have always believed that Wicked is one of the most, if not the most brilliant piece of musical theater ever created for a lot of reasons. Obviously, the music is phenomenal. The music is, I mean, obviously there were scores that had pop influences in the musical theater world before Wicked, stuff like Evita and other, you know, rock and stuff inspired, influenced shows. But Wicked was the first one that really, I don't know, that really hit it big, that all of those songs really could be on the radio. And the vocal stylings of Elphaba could be on the radio. And, you know, that was all like Mariah Carey type stuff. And, you know, I mean, just like real vocal goddess type of stuff that people were like, whoa. So there's that. The music had such strong pop influences that anybody would want to listen to it. Anybody could relate to it. It became mainstream. Then there's the fact that it is such a spectacle. I mean, there are not many contemporary shows. A lot of contemporary shows are more stripped down these days, and it's more just about the story. And so there's not as much of an attention to costumes and to special effects and to stuff like that. And that's not to say that those shows aren't absolutely phenomenal. But there's something about Wicked that, like, literally from the moment you enter the theater and the whole proscenium has all the twigs and the cogs and there's the map, right? And then the map comes up and like you are literally transported into a completely different world. And Elphaba flies, and there are all these special effects, and this woman is green, like truly green, and there's witches and a beautiful like blonde woman in a cupcake looking gown. You know, like it's
magic.
It's totally magical. It is totally a total spectacle, which people love. That's what people go to the theater to see a lot of the time. But I think the real genius of Wicked is the fact that it almost tricks you into understanding some real terrible political things that are unfortunately timeless, that any person can understand and that any person unfortunately has lived through. And what I mean by that is, you know, I think a lot of people, there have been a lot of academic papers that have likened the whole Dr. Dillerman getting silenced thing and the animals should be seen and not heard, and them persecuting and getting rid of all the animals. They've likened that to the Holocaust. There are people that have now in recent times likened that to the Trump administration and things like that, and silencing people that are different. And I think, unfortunately, no matter which way you slice it, it is a timeless story of people in power, like the wizard, trying to silence other people in order to be powerful. And Elphaba is the character who is the underdog who has gone against that. Elphaba is persecuted because of the color of her skin. That's not something that is other to us. We have seen that many times, which again is why I don't understand why very few people of color have played Elphaba, but that's another conversation. But I mean, you know, you don't go to Wicked and think it's going to be an inherently political show. You don't go to Wicked and think that it's going to make you think about these things. but it does, and it actually takes spectacle, and it takes a family friendly approach, and it takes a movie you've already known and loved, of the Wizard of Oz,
Yeah.
and it shows you that it's not right, that these things are not okay, and that this particular person that you've championed for 2 hours doesn't get a really happy ending. You know, she still didn't really win, right? You know, she still didn't really get to free the people that deserved to be freed. She still didn't truly get to take down the people that were taking advantage of her and everybody else. And she did her best, and by doing her best, she got like crucified for it. And that's unfortunately timeless, which is, I think, why the show has survived so well. People relate to Elphaba. There are girls that relate to wanting to be strong and feeling like the underdog. You know, a show that features 2 females as the lead is something that I think is really, really important for little girls to see.
It is,
and a show that uses another world to shine a mirror on our world is really genius. You know, I mean, I think something like Cabaret is one of my favorite shows of all time, and I think Cabaret is so beautifully done. But it still exists in the normal world. It still exists in Germany. This isn't an outlandish place that we've never experienced before. Whereas Oz, you sort of don't think that that's going to happen there. It's this beautiful, magical place. And when you realize that it does, and you realize that your world is not very different, gets you to think. And it gets you to think in a way that you have still been entertained, and you still walk out of the show feeling like happy and complete. And I don't think any other show can do that. I don't think any other show has done that. So I think that's why Wicked is so timeless, because it's brilliantly crafted.
I love everything you said. I mean, for me until now, like, it's always been, you know, like the other side of the story. And like the idea that something that's so magical, like even that what you said, that can be wrong too. Like, you know, you can't believe everything the way it seems.
Exactly.
And I love that.
Well, I mean, even just like you said, like the Wizard of Oz, you know, Margaret Hamilton was made to look like this terrible witch woman who was awful. And then you look at her side of the story and you're like, she's not so bad. You know, and so there are 2 sides to every story. And I love that it explores that.
That happens so often, and that we, like the media nowadays, you know, like the way they explain things will like look at all sides for sure.
And I think it's important that it's still an important show, because it has taught now generations of women to rise up and claim their power, which I love, which is a big reason why I've always wanted to play Elphaba. But it has also sort of tricked all of us into thinking about the world around us and what's wrong and what's right, and how that's not so black and white. You know?
Absolutely. So before we finish, I have 3 short questions for you.
Love it.
The first one is your top 3 Broadway shows.
Oh boy. Okay. Top 3. Well, Wicked is number 1. That's a given.
Of course.
In the Heights.
Okay.
Is one of my other favorite. I mean, I love Hamilton, but I do think In the Heights is his best show. And Cabaret.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. The next question is 2 books you would recommend to a friend.
Oh, this is a good one too. 2 books I would recommend to a friend. You Are a Badass by Jen Cisneros?
I've heard about it. Yeah, I don't know her name, but
it is a great book. And as somebody who always struggles with the I am actually a badass feeling, it is a great self-help book, and I do love myself a self-help book. It is a great self-help book about everything you need to be a badass and to be a good person is inside of you. You just have to let it out.
Sounds like such an Elphaba book.
Listen, my life has always followed a certain theme. So You Are a Badass is a great book. My dad actually bought it for me. He was like, you need to start believing you're a badass. I was like, okay, thanks, Dad.
Nice.
It's a great book. And you know what? My other book that I would recommend is Becoming Michelle Obama because I just
Oh,
finally
okay.
finished it. It took a long time. It was a very good book. I'm also a big biography person. I like to read biographies. But that was a really good book, so I recommend that.
Oh, okay. I haven't read it yet, but
Highly
thank you for
recommend.
that.
Very
Okay.
good.
My last question is, can you give us one piece of advice for someone who's starting in acting?
Oh, that's a great question too. My advice is always actually to never stop learning. I think that's the best piece of advice that I can give, simply because our world is ever changing, our industry is ever changing, we are ever changing and evolving, and I think that a hunger for knowledge will always bring you to the next level in every area of your life, but especially in acting. I think the more life you experience, the more you're able to draw from as an actor. And so I think learning new things and learning more things. And I think that also has a lot to do with empathy. I think if we learn more about the people around us, I think a lot more people might be a little more empathetic, and we might all get along a little better. So I think, yeah, being open and being readily available to any knowledge that you can take in is what is going to bring you to the next level, because not everybody wants to learn and grow. A lot of people want one-stop shopping, instant gratification. I'm here and that's it, I've learned it all. And it's always the person that goes the extra mile, whose performance makes you cry, or whose career you want, because those are the people that have never stopped searching for more.
And working really hard, for sure.
Yeah. But again, I mean, that also all boils down to empathy. I think the more we learn, the more empathy we have, and that's what you need to be an actor. That's what you need to be a good person. So
I mean, that's what acting is about. It's empathizing with the characters you're playing, with the others, of course.
So learning and empathy, those are my suggestions.
Thank you. Those were amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Where can people find you and follow you and your work?
Well, they can find me on my website, which is www.sarahannfernandez.com. Very simple. Or on Instagram, Twitter, and even TikTok at SarahAnn17, but with 2 E's on the "and" because somebody else had the same idea as me. So Sarah Ann, 2 E's, 17.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for joining us today. It was such a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me and for asking such fun, wonderful questions. This was so fun.
Hey everybody, I'm back in my kitchen in LA. I hope you enjoyed the conversation with Sarah. Thank you again, Sarah, for coming here and giving us such amazing information and insights on Wicked. Not only that, also for everybody who's starting out. I think this conversation is awesome and very, very inspiring. Her journey has only started and she's off to a great start. So from the Actor's Vow, we wish you the best, Sarah. And before we end this episode this week, I wanted to bring the play of the week. So this week, instead of just one play, because Black History Month is ending, so I wanted to bring a playwright. So you can find all the plays by this playwright. Her name is Lynn Nottage. She's a very contemporary playwright and very young. And her plays are so unique. She has such a beautiful style. You have to read them. Her plays that are more famous are Ruined, Intimate Apparel, and Meet Vera Stark by Lynn Nottage. Alright guys, this will be all for this week. Remember to subscribe on iTunes. It's so helpful for the podcast. And if this podcast has ever helped you, you found it entertaining, or it's given you any tips or advice that has been helpful to you, it would be amazing if you could leave a review for the podcast on iTunes. I'm always so grateful for your support and for you listening, and especially for this beautiful community that we are creating. Also, don't forget to follow The Actor's Vow on social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. All the interviews are on YouTube with video, which I love. You can, put it on TV and just watch the interview. And this will be all. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your week, and I will see you next Wednesday.